No. Get down. Good morning. I'm trying to get my live feed to show up on my computer. There it is. And you guys are seeing it sideways, so let me try to switch that. I guess it didn't matter. Suki, no. My dog's in the workshop with me today. She likes to be out here at work. Unfortunately, she's decided it's time to be done and go inside, just as we're getting started. Oh, we gotta mute this here. There we go. I'll be right back. So grab your paints. If you're doing the Jeep Gnome painting with me, you're going to need red, white, black, and green. We can make brown with red and green. Okay, Suki's now inside. She's gone potty, just chillaxing with her family. She's probably whining because I'm not there. She's attached to me. If you haven't met Suki yet, she's an Australian Shepherd we got from Lakeland Animal Shelter. Since camera didn't seem to matter, let me see if I can switch it this way again. Nope, it does matter. Okay. There we go. It's a previous painting we did with a customer. All right. So, can I zoom out just a smidge? I can zoom in. Can't zoom out. All right, so I haven't started drawing on here just because I don't have the image in front of me anymore. I painted that image a few years ago on some palette wood. I cut one piece in half and I stuck them together and then I painted on them. I have some others over here next to me. because we were going to a craft event and the gnomes were really, really in at that time. So we thought, hey, let's do a bunch of gnome things. I can paint them really quick. And that's what we did. But gnomes are still a pretty big ticket item. I'm surprised everyone still likes to paint the gnomes. But let's go with some paintbrushes that I have here. This is a 1-inch flat brush. Any 1-inch flat brush will do. Depends on the size of your canvas as to how big your brushes are going to be. I'm just painting on a little journal book. So this is like a 5 by 7, 10, 11, I forget what it is, that I'm using. I made it in school with my students when I was still teaching at Milton High School. I have a little fine detail brush in case I need to get into anything. Super teeny weeny. Again, my canvas is small, so that's why I grabbed a smaller brush. Typically, when I'm painting at workshops, we're painting on 11 by 14. A 1-inch to 2-inch brush is our background brush that we usually use. And then we go down from there. This is usually the smallest brush that I paint with, another flat brush. I guess this one is the one I usually go with, which is about a 1/4-inch flat brush. I like flat brushes because you can get a nice straight line with them. You can get a very fine line with them if you turn in this direction rather than just painting this way with them. But if you actually paint with them, like as a line, you can get a nice fine line. Remember, when you're painting, when you press down, the bristles spread out, especially if you have round brushes. So the more I press down, you see how those bristles are flaring out? The more they flare out, the wider your line. So if you want a very fine line, you just have to very barely touch the surface and drag. Now with paint in here, I would twist my paintbrush and brings it to a nice fine point. So if you're working with round brushes, that's fine too. The first thing you want to do is you want to get started by painting your background, whatever color you want to paint your background. Now we are out in a tree farm here with our gnomes, and it could be a snowy day. It looks like there was some snow on the trees, but on the original painting I left it very, just the background with the wood showing through. So I just painted the Jeep and the trees. Which is what I'm going to do for you again here today. But if you want to paint the background, I would suggest a light blue or some blues in there, or maybe some grays or some purples. And when I say purples and blues and grays, I'm talking a very light shade, so a lot of white and a little of the other color. And you always want to add your dark color to your light color. I'll show you how I mix colors real quick. So I'm going to take my paintbrush here. I'm going to dip it in the black, and I'm going to drag it over to the white, and I'm going to start mixing. And you can see how quickly that goes pretty dark with the amount of white that I grabbed. And I can slowly grab a little bit more white and get to a lighter gray. Now, with the amount of black I chose on my paintbrush, I could have a very, very pale gray if I would have went right in the middle and mixed it all up. Then I'd go back and forth, and you're wasting a lot of paint by doing that. So just grab a little paint off to the side and mix it in. So maybe this is a medium, this is a lighter, and I can bring some more and I do it over here. And this way I'm going to have 3 different color grays to work with. If I wanted to paint anything with gray. Okay, let's say I wanted it a little bit darker. I could bring some of the black back into it and make it a little bit darker. Okay, so I have 3 different tones of gray. That's how I mix colors. I don't take a big thing, or I don't squirt it from the bottle right into it and start mixing. When you do that, you tend to waste a lot of paint. I have my little lovely purple paint cup. I always swish it around. I press it down on the bottom. I don't press hard, but it's down at the bottom. And while it's at the bottom, you see it got all that paint out. If I put it on my hand, there's no gray left in it. And then I'll take some paper towels and I'll wipe it off. But especially with these round ones, I like to kind of shape my brush back into the round shape and then set it down. It keeps your brushes lasting a lot longer. Grab some paper towel so I can dry off my fingers. Again, I called my lovely tax lady back because I'm sure she wants to set up my appointment for me. She just called while we were live videoing, so I'll call her back. All right, so once again, background, however you choose to paint that, you can go ahead and paint your background whenever you're working on a stretch canvas. Remember to do your edges. We don't like to see white edges later. It looks unfinished. If you've ever forgotten to paint your edges, if you went to another workshop and they didn't mention painting your edges, you can take simply take some black paint and paint the edges, and that'll help it look a lot more finished, and your eye isn't seeing that eyesore of a white canvas. It's hard to mix your colors to match the same once you're done. You might not have the same colors that the person did at the event or that I have, or maybe you ran out and you went and bought a new bottle and the shade's off just a little. It's really hard to match things perfectly. I mean, you can do it. It's not impossible. It just takes a lot of time. Okay, so now we're going to jump in, and I'm going to get started here. I'm going to start with my Jeep in the middle. Put my paints there so you guys can see it. Alright, because my canvas is small, I'm going to stick with a small brush. Your canvas is a lot larger, you might want to go with a bigger brush. If your canvas is small, you'll probably want to stick with a small. Another fun brush to get if you don't have one is an angled brush. This helps get some nice fine details too, but you really have to be careful with these. I can tell this one has got a bunch of paint built up down here in the finial area where they connect, and it's like kind of like a ball and thick and chunky. So when you're using your paints and you're dipping your paintbrushes, try not to get the paint up past here. You don't want it just on the bristles down here. You don't need it all the way up in here. Just because when you get paint stuck down here, as you can see, it kind of starts to flare out and it can't keep that nice tight point anymore. Because there's stuff in there blocking it from doing so. All right, now we have our basic shapes. So we're going to start with our basic shapes. I'm going to dip my paintbrush into the red, and I'm going to start by painting a basic rectangle, rounded on the corners. And then I'm going to fill that in. So we have rounded corner rectangle, kind of in the middle of our painting. If you have a larger painting, you're going to want to make your rectangle a lot larger. For the size of this, it's about 1/4 of the size of the painting, if that makes sense. So if I was to divide this in half and then in quarter again, it's about that size. If you want to know in inches, I did grab a ruler. So my sketchbook is 10 inches and this is about 2.5, which is 1/4 of 10 inches. So 5 inches is half, and half of that is 2.5, so that would be 1/4. So that's about the size you want. So if you have a 20-inch canvas, a 16 by 20, you're running the 20 this way, vertical, right? Horizontal, my bad. You're running it horizontal, like the horizon line. 20 inches, a quarter of 20 would be 4 inches. 20 divided 5 inches. 20 divided by 4 would be 5 inches. All right. That's all the red that's on the Jeep. You just got red on the hats as well for the gnomes. So let me wash my brush out real quick. Again, I'm just kind of swishing it around on the bottom, getting all that paint out of there. And you can see there's still a little paint left in it. And we'll swish again and get that out. Alright, now I'm going to dip into my black. And actually what I want to do first is I want to grab just a corner of my paintbrush here with some white, and I'm going to bring it over here because I want a really, really dark gray for the top so I can see some of my darker details in there later. Alright, so the top of my Jeep kind of looks like a trapezoid. So it's another rectangle but has a little angles to it. So starting at the red, I'm going to go slightly inverted there. Go across my red. I have to pick up some more paint. Now my red's still a little wet, so I'm going to end up having a little bit of that in my black, but it's okay. Alright. The top of my truck, I'm going to curve that again, just like I did before. They're going to have kind of nice rounded edges. And bring it down to my red again. Alright, the next area that is also black is the tire on the Jeep. So now we're making a circle. If you have the flat brush, you can grab some paint. If you put it standing straight up, you hold on to the one side where the tip stays down, and you just twirl your brush, you can get a nice circle. And you can just kind of take it out from there, and you can kind of keep more of that actual circle shape. You're going to go up a little bit into the black, and you want it to be big enough that goes a little bit down into the bumper. And I painted a little over my bumper before, so with my red, I think that'll be pretty good. So we have a rectangle, a crooked rectangle, also known as a trapezoid, and then we're going to do the tires here. So tires, another rectangle shape, again a little on the rounded side, so coming down from, you can do it right down from the red. The bumper's in there, but we'll just do it that way. It makes it easy for you guys. Make sure your tire's straight up and down, perpendicular to your car. Otherwise, you'd be driving kind of funny. Round off that edge there. Round off the bottoms edges as well. So this side out here on the outside of the truck, those are going to have those rounded curves. The inside here is also going to be rounded. This is going to be bumper, so you're going to cover that up later. Same with the other tire. I'm going to go straight up and down. Curve that tire. This side as well. Okay. The other part that I have black is on the outside of the bumper here. We'll show those details in a little bit. Let's go ahead and grab some gray. So I'm going to take the black that's on my paintbrush and I'm going to scoop up some of this white, and I'm just going to mix a gray over here. Trying to get all that white and black mixed together that was in my brush, so I don't have a little bit of a streak come out later. Okay, so I have a nice solid gray color. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to the middle of the tire and just draw a nice straight line. How do you draw so straight? Well, practice. I also have my hand rested on my canvas. If you have a wet canvas, always dry in between, you can use an extra paper plate and just fan it. You can step away from it for a while, or you can use a hair dryer. Speed up the process. And I got some wet red in there, but that's okay. There's my bumper. I'm going to rinse this paintbrush out, so I don't need this one anymore. I might need it again at some point, but right now I don't need it. Another fun thing it is when you paint on wood, like my original painting, I actually drilled holes in that painting and put a light set in it. So the lights on the tree and where the gnome is actually hanging off on the pre-lit tree are actual lights. And the tail lights on the Jeep are also lights. So I painted those lights red. So when it was like the tips of them, I got them from the dollar store, just a battery operated pack of white lights. And then the ones that went in the Jeep tail lights, I painted red, just the tip. So it looks like the brake lights are on, or the headlights were on with the brakes. And then the white that goes through the tree and where the gnome is hanging off of it. It's kind of fun. All right, I don't need this guy anymore. I have, like I said, a super small painting, so I'm going to go with my super small brush. Well, it's not too super small, but small brush. I want to go into my black, and I want to make this gray a little bit darker. So I'm just going to make a little bit of it over here. I don't need the whole amount mixed up in case I need that gray again. I don't want to use it all up because, you know, again, it would be hard to make again, right? So that way I have it in case you need it. So a little bit darker gray. I'm going to come down here where the tire is, kind of in the middle of the tire, and just draw a line going up to the bottom of the bumper. And the same on this side. So I'm going to kind of start here and go to the bumper. We'll call it the undercarriage and all of the, I don't know the terms of vehicles, sorry. All the under stuff, the axles and whatnot. Okay. And this is kind of a triangle. It's something you might see underneath the Jeep that's been lifted. My husband wants a Jeep. That's why he wanted me to paint this again. All right. This darker gray is lighter than our tires. And it's lighter than the black, maybe up through here. So I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to kind of drag some lines, just a little bit here and there. Just kind of sketchy. I'm barely touching my paintbrush to the tires. That's going to add a little bit of lightness and darkness, you know, like, so you can see almost tire treads on it. And as I'll zoom in here later so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that paint on my paintbrush. And I'm going to come up here along the side. And I'm going to lighten the back of this up because it's not quite as light as I wanted it. So I'm just going to go around the outside perimeter of the top of the Jeep cap. The hard cover, we'll call it. My husband's dream is to have a hard cover, soft cover, bikini cover. He's got a whole bunch of things that he wants. But what he forgets is he no longer lives in Arizona, so it's not really a Wisconsin vehicle so much. But he does want to go to the dunes in Michigan and play someday in his life if he was to ever get a Jeep. Okay, kind of round it off. Everything's kind of rounded off. We need the tail bumper, the bumper parts to go back in here. So I'm going to add some of that lighter color just up through there so we can see the difference there as well. Actually, I might put a little red in the black, make them stand out a little bit. We'll see. All right, rinsing my paintbrush off. I'm going to go back into just the plain black. Again, it's a small brush as well. It's still round. I don't like the round brushes, but it is what it is. Okay, so I'm going to come down to the bumper. And I might have to make my bumper a little bit wider. Same on the other side. Grab some more paint. I'm going to go to the outside of where my bumper was. Not quite to the edge of my tire. And not quite to the edge of the inside of my tire, leaving some space there. So if you notice the outside of the tire here, the outside of the bumper, it's not as wide as the tire. On the inside here, the undercarriage, the tire is here and the bumper, the black part of the bumper is there. So try not to go too thick on it. I'm trying to match them up and I'm failing, so I'm going to try to make this one a little bit taller. There we go. A little bit closer to the right size. Now, like I said, I don't want to get rid of that gray because I might need it. So I'm going to come back in because I made my black parts a little too wide. I'm going to grab some of that gray again and match it up here. Stop at the tire. Typically, I like to do this kind of stuff before I paint something over top of it. As you know, I like to do whatever's in the background first. Sorry, I have to turn my painting a bit. Whenever you do everything in the background first and work your way forward, you're adding another layer of paint, which is just giving it a nice dimension. So I'll end up going over my thing a bit there again, but there we have it. Alright. Let me zoom in real quick so you can see that a little bit better. Alright, so as I was showing you here, we have our rectangular red still, and then we have the trapezoid topper, and then we did our circle, and we did the bumper down here. I suggest doing the bumper first if you haven't done it yet already, if you're watching the video afterwards or anything. We put in the tires. The tires came out to the outside of the Jeep. And remember, it's perpendicular to the Jeep, so make sure they're straight up and down. We don't want, tires to go in. They're not going to wear properly, and then you'll have to get new tires. And Jeep tires are expensive. And then we have the undercarriage down here, so we've got some axles and whatever that's supposed to be down there. I'm going to add another coat of black to the circle. Remember, the circle is going to go above the red a little bit into the window, and below the red into the bumper a little bit. I added little black caps on my bumper as well. And they'll stand out in a little bit because we'll end up putting some white highlights in there just so that you can tell the difference between the bumper and the tires. And it just makes it look a little bit more interesting when you have some of those highlights and lowlights in there. Alright, so before I finish up my Jeep, like I said, I'm going to go over that tire one more time. So I'm going back to my flat brush. I'm going to grab a little paint, and I'm just going to give it a second coat. Part of it's because the red was showing through. Part of it's because, like I said, I went over my bumper. There we go. Alright, if you take your paintbrush, don't wash it off, but just kind of like get most of that paint off there. This is kind of what we call a dry brush technique. Alright, I'm going to take it down here into the bumper and kind of push down a little. Get a little bit of that black to come off onto the bumper without getting into any other wet paint. And do a slightly here as well in the red, going straight up and down. Now, if you want to use a smaller paintbrush to do that, you can. You don't have to use the bigger one. But if you turn your paintbrush and have it going straight up and down this direction and flick it up. That'll work for you. Alright, so that's basically our Jeep, right? Now, we don't want any copyright infringements, so I'm not going to paint the word Jeep on it this time, even though, you know, you could put a geo-tracker on it. I'm not going to do that either. But if you want to, by all means, have at it. You can write the lettering on the back. Or, you know, a lot of Jeeps have the duck. Maybe you could paint a little rubber ducky on the back of the tire. So that the spare tires always have some fun cover on for a lot of Jeep owners. So you can have some fun with that. Before we finish this, I'm going to hit it with a hairdryer real quick because I see some shiny spots. I always buy matte paint so I know if it's shiny, it's wet. Alright, so if you ever have paint markers or if you have Sharpie markers, Sharpie markers are great to do the details of some like fine lines once your painting is dry. If you needed to go in, there's so many different colors I offer now. Paint markers can be good as long as they don't bleed too much. Some gel pens can work nice. Like if you have a lighter colored gel pen on top of the black, that would work nice too if you wanted to add some detail. I'm going with my super fine little paintbrush here. I'm going to dip into my white. See, it's just on the tip there. Just a little bit on the tip. And now I'm going to add some of those details. So I'm going to very light-handed, barely touching my paper. Okay, I'm going to add just some details in like that. Maybe around the top part of the circle. And again, the lighter I'm touching, you can see it's like barely hitting any paint. It's kind of, and if I press down a little bit more, I'm getting a little bit more paint out, just like here. If I don't re-dip a lot, I'll end up getting that dry brush technique going on. Alright, I'm going to need some more paint because I ran out. So again, just the tip. Remember, if you have any questions, you can pop them in the comments. I'll see them eventually. I just saw one of my friends message me. So, just again, kind of adding a little bit of white here and there. We can add some into the bumper as well. I don't want to go too crazy into some of the areas, but just to get a little. Alright. Grab my white again. Barely touch there. I'm going to go right here. I think my gnome is going to cover that up where I have it, but we'll see. And this is going to be where the headlights are going to be. I'm going to put some lighter areas up here as well. And the topper and on the window. Alright, I'm going to rinse that guy out. Bring it to a nice point again, set that aside, keeps it nice. You don't want to keep your paintbrushes in your water. I do at my workshops just so they don't get filled with paint. But you want to take your paintbrushes out of your water, dry them off, clean them off. You can use soap and water. You don't want super hot water. Cold water's okay. Warm water's perfect. Again, just not too warm. There's glue keeping all of the bristles in your brushes, so be careful with that. All right, so my Jeep is done. He's all cute and adorable. So I'm going to go on to the trees next. So I'm going to do the tree that's on top of the Jeep. And then when I started this, I added the trees to the background kind of as I felt they were needed. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see those a little bit better again. There we go. All right. Now it's just a darker, I forget the name of the green. I got it covered with paint so I can't see it either. But, you know, it's just a bottle of green paint. Call it a forest green? I don't know. Just a green. All right. Now, if you have a fan brush, fan brushes make trees really easily. I didn't grab one because most people don't have them. So I'm going to go with my flat brush again. Now, you can do it with a round brush too if that's all you have. But I'm going to dip into the flat brush into my paint. All right. And I'm going to start, bring it over this way. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, so my triangle says where I put my trees. Okay, let's see if I can move my painting on my computer so I can see what I'm doing. Here we go. All right, I had a little guy kind of here. So you can kind of pounce and make a triangle. Pouncing helps keep that from getting those really harsh straight lines. We don't want really straight trees with harsh lines. Now I'm flipping my paintbrush this direction. And I'm going to keep pouncing. My son's coming in, or not. So if you hear someone, it's probably him. We're taking down our outdoor Christmas decorations. We're leaving the lights up, but the other stuff we're taking out so that they don't get frozen to the ground. If we ever get snow. All right, so again, a triangle. It's tiny at the top and it gets wider at the bottom, right? So that's what we're doing. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing. And if white paper shows through, I don't care. Let some white paper show through. You want a wonky fat tree, you want a skinny winnie tree, you want a Dr. Seussical tree, by all means you make whatever tree you want. But you see as I'm pouncing, I take some beyond the point, I go back in, and bringing my tree down that way. All right, I'm going to do the same with this one back here. This one back here is going to look like he's in the background, possibly. I don't know, maybe not. Again, I should have done that one first if I wanted it to be that way, but yeah, I do me. So you do you. All right, pounce, pounce, pounce. Letting it go off the page. Again, if you have a stretch canvas, you can go ahead and take this green right along the side and paint the side of your canvas if you like with some of the green, the tree would where it would go. Now while I'm pouncing, and I told you to go ahead and pounce, I'm not pouncing so hard that I'm ruining my bristles. That's something that a lot of people, they don't know how to do, I guess. So I'm pushing down with my paintbrush. That came from the back of the brush, and I don't want to go back so much. I'm pouncing, but I'm just kind of tapping. It's like tap, tap, tap. Just the top edge. And it will kind of ruin your brush eventually, but if you do it lightly and you're not doing it all crazy, you'll be able to use it for many, many years before you have any issues. Alright, so there's the backgrounds of those two. I'm going to flip this one over this way. We got a big one over here as well. Ooh, he's way up there. Okay. This one I have going almost all the way to the top, so I'm just going to just so you get the idea of where it's going to be. All right, I'm going to start pouncing. Tap, tap, tap. And for Bob Ross, we're making happy little Christmas trees. Don't you ever miss watching him? I mean, you can still watch his recorded program on PBS. And if you have, I don't know if it's on Netflix Prime, I don't remember. He's on something. You can watch the Bob Ross channel on so many different things now. And his voice was just so soothing and so peaceful to listen to him when he was painting. He just seemed so happy, like he was in his zone, he was in his space, and it's like he was living in the forest with his happy little squirrels. Thanks, Mary. I just saw your post. It's very, very peaceful, very Bob Ross-esque. Now, if I wanted to, it's a bigger tree. I could have switched to my bigger brush and it would have gotten done a lot faster, but psh, who needs fast? We're just enjoying our winter vacation. All those kiddos that needed something to do, now they know how to paint trees and Jeeps, and soon a gnome. Now you can take the skills that you learn here and apply them to other paintings that you have. You can practice the different brush strokes. Alright, I'm going to flip on back over to my other trees. Alright, we're going to take some of the white, dreaming of a white Christmas, it didn't happen, and I'm going to add it to my green. Mix it all in. Twist my paintbrush, try to get all that paint out of there. Keep spinning, spinning, spinning. Alright, so now we have a lighter green. We don't want white yet. We do have that lighter green. Alright. So, there it is. You can see it now. It's right there. So we added just a little white. You can see where I grabbed from my white. I didn't contaminate the whole pile. Just grab a little off to the side, mix it into the side of the green. Now I have that pretty light green. It's not too incredibly light, but it's a pretty light green. Rinse off my brush, try it out. Remember, we don't want a lot of water left over. I'm going to grab some of that green. And I'm going to pounce again, but I'm only going to pounce every once in a while. In some places, I'm leaving a lot more of that dark green showing through. Notice I have to go back and grab more of that green a little bit more often now than I did before with the other green. I'll do this guy, he's in front. Just kind of hit and miss where I'm going to put that lighter color. See, already it's starting to look more like a beautiful, we'll call it a fir. Sure, we'll do it with a fir tree. I don't know what a fir tree looks like. It's a pine tree. That's what it is. It could be a blue spruce. Add a little blue to it. Boom. There we go. All right. Now we got this guy over here. Again, just kind of start tap, tap, tapping. I'm going to grab a little more white because my paint is running out. Now, you have to cluster some of them together. You can't just do dot, dot, dot and skip all around. You have to cluster some together, but you can't cluster it so much that you covered up your darker green under there. So you have to make sure that you're getting just the right amount. How do you know? You just practice. And you look at it, take a step back. Can you fix it later? Sure, you can add some more paint. Just ask Julie. She's not watching right now. Maybe she's working. Otherwise I'd say, Julie, what do we have to do? Should we add more paint? I can hear it right now. All right. Once those dry, we'll go through and we'll add some white to the tops of them as well. And then we'll have the trees finished. So what are we going to do? We're going to hit them with a hairdryer so you don't have to sit and wait here for hours. Hey, you know what tree I forgot to paint? The one that the gnomes already have. So let me rinse my brush off. Let's go into my dark green again, because, you know, we forgot the one on top of the Jeep. Alright, this guy is just going to be kind of wispy. We're going to kind of wisp him like that. So we're not really going to pounce him. We're going to wisp him like he's a Dr. Seussical tree. Alright? And this kind of comes like this. So he might come down into the top of the truck a little bit like that, coming off the back. That's how we're going to paint that guy, because the gnome's going to end up being in front of him anyway. Okay, now rinsing my brush, drying it off, grabbing some of that lighter green. I can't do it that way because there's not enough on there, so let me grab a little white. Just mix up some more of that green. There we go. Now we'll try it. Okay. And just like that, poof, he's done. Alright, these are dry enough. Well, this I just got water on, so let me try to dry those off. Come back over to the two little guys. Grab my white paint over here on this side so I'm not crossing over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to grab... Whoop. My white. Just dabbed it in there a little bit. I'll move that out of the way. Some more of this is on camera. There we go. And again, I'm going to start kind of, I don't know, middle of the tree so I don't have too much of that really heavy stuff as I get to the top. Now this you're going to do even less than you did the other green with the pouncing. Unless it's a really flocked tree, really snow-covered tree. Alright, the little guy here in front. Again, I'm going to start down here towards the bottom so I don't have too much on my paintbrush when I'm getting up towards those other bristles up there. Bristles? That's not right. That's my paintbrush. Branches. Oh. We'll see if my friend has her granddaughter paint along with us here soon. I want to see Aurora's painting. Let's see what she does. I added a little black to my paintbrush just to get down here underneath the shadow of the tree. And define. I'm going to go back into the green here again and just add some more. Just so I can see the difference between the trees a little bit better, because I got a little crazy there with the one. Alright, so I'm going to throw this on over this way. Now you can see, we getting dizzy yet? Alright, I'm going to go ahead, clean paintbrush, see? Dip into that white again, blot a little off. Start in the middle. And start pouncing. You could turn your paintbrush the other direction too. Find out what works best with your paintbrush. Sometimes the bristles, you know, they're all a little bit different. And everyone's like, oh, yours looks so neat. And it's like, it's just, I'm working with the paintbrush that I have. So sometimes it's a matter of having a really old paintbrush rather than a new one. Now here I just added a little bit more green to my brush. So it's a lighter green than the other one. And I'll come back and add some more of the white again. Put a little up here on this guy. Just barely tapping. Turn my paintbrush this direction too. Alright, now if you don't have a really fine paintbrush, you don't have a little itty bitty one, and you're not very good with the pressure to get a nice fine line, grab a marker. Just grab a Sharpie marker after you're done painting to do this part. I'm going to take my itty bitty teeny weeny guy here. I'm going to dip it in the black paint. You notice here I'm rolling my paintbrush. It brings it back to that point. I got to turn it this way because I'm writing, and I always write like that. I don't know why, I just do. Alright, so I'm just going to very lightly skip a little bit. There we go. Come back here. And I'm going to have to go into the paint a lot because if I press down, remember to get the paint out of the bristles, it's going to widen it. And if I do that, then I'm going to get a thicker line than I want. So I just have to re-dip often. Careful, my tree might be wet, so gotta be careful about where I put my hand down. I have a big blob of paint on my tip of my brush, so I'm trying very hard not to leave a big blob anywhere. I remember in middle school when we were doing a drafting course in our woods class with Mr. Hocker, and you had to learn how to write like on lines. I don't remember what it was. But we had to, he kept telling us, he goes, turn your pencils. He goes, to keep a nice sharp edge, just keep turning your pencil. So that when you're writing, it doesn't just get dull on one side, and you just turn your pencil. So it's just good paintbrush. It's the same thing. I'm just kind of flipping my paintbrush in my hand. Isn't it weird what we remember? I'm like, that was middle school. You know how many years ago that was? 10 years ago. No, it wasn't. I'm just kidding. I'm still saying I'm 29. Ask my kids. They're catching up to me. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. And got everything you wanted and didn't get too overworked or overwhelmed. Oh no. Praying for those who lost family members this last year, even within the last few days, as they have to go into the new year without their loved one. And it's not easy, you know, you lose a friend or family member. But I can't imagine around this time of the year how things change, how different they can be for people. So keeping them in my hearts and my prayers. Alright, I want to make brown. I have brown. I could go grab the brown. I don't want to grab the brown. I'm going to show you how to make brown with two complementary colors, red and green. Alright, so I'm going to start with a little white because you can see the color better. I'm going to grab some of this red. Red and white's going to do what? It's going to make pink. Yep. I'm going to grab a little bit of that green. A little bit more of that green. I'm going to keep working on it. Now it's kind of a green mess. Turning kind of gray. Probably going to have to add more of the red. So I'm going to go back into the red. Add a little bit more of that one. See what's happening here? Ooh. As I go back and forth between the red and the green and the white, grab a little bit more white. And voila. I now have a flushy nose color. It's like magic, wasn't it? It's Christmas magic right there. Boom. Alright. I'm going to put my noses in for my gnomes. Alright, one right above the tree up here. We're just going to blop a dot. Alright, and he's just kind of an oval. Alright, and then whoop, over this way. See where the guy's hanging off? Yep, he needs a nose. So we're going to blop another oval over here. And then I'm going to move it this way. Don't get sick. I know we got lots of moving going on. I have my shorter armature up right now so that you can see better, but then you don't get to see as much. So, all right, go on ahead. And this guy off the side of the Jeep over here, plus a little lip. I'm gonna throw a little lip in there on that guy. He's got a mustache, so we're gonna see his lip. All right, that's his nose. That's where your gnomes are gonna be at. Let me zoom out slightly. There we go. Now we can see the better whole picture there again. Rinsing out my paintbrush, drying it off, taking my fingers, bringing it back to that point to set it down. Gnomes, they can be any color you want them to be as far as our hats and stuff go, but you know, why not red and green, because that's what we have. But if you want blue, you want purple, you want something, you can. We got green trees, you know, maybe they're hiding amongst the trees, so they're wearing green to camouflage. But that just might be a bit too much green for an artistic point of view. So we're just going to do the red. I'm going to go in with my smaller paintbrush just because, again, my gnomes are smaller. You might have a 20 by 16 canvas. And in that case, you could do it with a 1-inch brush if you really wanted to. Sticking my red up here. Trying to bring my painting towards me in there so we can get it on there. All right. All right, so how do we do this? Always go around the nose. Let me zoom in again. I mean, I have it drawn in there, so I knew what I was painting, but I'm going to go around the nose. So just kind of like that. So it's like we're doing an upside down U, but I'm also bringing a little flare out to the side here. And then I'm going to make it a little bit wider. And I'm going to a little wobbly with my hand this time, so it's kind of wah, wah. All right, so it's a nice thick line. All right, now I'm going to go not quite to the edge, but I'm going to bring it in a little bit, and I'm going to go up and start wiggling my line and bring it to the point. Now, how do I get it to that nice fine point? Remember, you have to lift your paintbrush off your canvas as you're getting towards the end there, and it brings it to a point. All right, and then you're just filling it in. Fill them in, fill them in, fill them in. But I can't see my lines anymore. That's okay. Just fill it in. It's a big red hat. Now, if you wanted to just barely touch the black. Let's see if this worked. I did. I barely touched the black. There we go. I'm going to draw a line up there. That's going to define my hat. Now, if I want it to be a bigger definition, I'm going to grab a little bit more black, and I'm going to try. Nope, I didn't grab enough. Let me try this again. There we go. And I can do that with it. All right. If I want it to be a little bit more defined, I tend to go light-handed, and then you can't see it from far away. So I'm going to try to do it a little heavier for you guys so you can see it better. And I'm just kind of touching some different spots there and just bring some of that black in. Now that was wet on wet. So wet on wet technique, that's kind of what Bob Ross used. He used oils. We're using acrylics. You could do it in watercolor, but watercolor, excuse me, it's a whole other medium. It acts nothing like acrylics or oils. Gouache is fun. I've never used it myself. I want to. I just haven't found any that I like yet. It's kind of like a watercolor, but you can put lighter on top of dark and it still shows up like acrylic, where watercolor, you can't put white on top of blue and expect the white to show up, but you can with acrylics and oils. So that's why I like those. All right, so we're gonna go on to our next little gnome hat. So let me move my paints out of the way. We're traveling over to this guy. I'm dipping my paintbrush into the red and I'm twisting. Let me see if I can get my camera. Ooh, where are you at? Oh, there you are. And I twisted it to bring it to a point. Again, I'm gonna go shallow U over upside down U, so a hill, shallow hill over the gnome's nose, and then I'm going to make it thicker. And then remember, just slightly in from the edge there, I'm going to come up with it. As you can see, red does not cover up black. So I'm going to have to bring the black back in front of his hat here later. But he also has his little arms. This paintbrush is not working for me right now. So I'm going to go ahead and give him his little arms. And this one here. He had little hands here as well. I just can't see him so much anymore. Alright. Let me go to my smaller paintbrush and go into the black. And again, add a little here while the red is still wet. This is where his hand would be. And his arm. So I want that defined. Gotta put the string right back in front, but it's going through his hand, so we don't want it to go through the hand. This side we'll see a little bit through. His hand over here. Again, it's going to come through there slightly. Now he's holding on for dear life. And we're going to do our last little gnome over here. He's the driver, but he's not looking. That's why they're hanging on for dear life. No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. We switch back to my red paintbrush. Barely touch the top, then start pushing down. Doing this one a little bit backwards because I had it drawn out. Same as before. Start with your curve over the nose. And then take it up. I mean, you think about it, they're basically just wonky triangles, right? So it's like Dr. Seussical triangle. That's what a gnome's hat is. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to look any certain way. You can have them look, you know, plaid or whatever by adding different colors to them. I just got red in his beard, or his mustache. We'll paint over that anyway. Going in with my detail brush while it's still wet. Adding that line for the brim of his hat. Trying not to get my hand in the camera, but also not in the paint. That's kind of challenging. Now, if you want to outline any of this stuff, like I said, you can do that with a marker later. You don't have to do it right now. It won't blend as far as like having some lighter shades of the black to add kind of a shadow. But cartoons back in our day when we were watching them didn't have shadows. They were just flat and they had the black outline. So you can kind of do it like that style. And it would look just as cute. Alright, I'm going to take my same little pointer brush here and I'm going to go into my white and my really light gray. Remember when I was mixing colors in the very beginning? Maybe not because you joined later. I was just showing you how to mix colors. I'm going to use that really light gray there for his mustache so it stands out from the rest of it. So his mustache is going to be bloop right here up to his nose. So it's fatter towards the nose here and kind of comes out that way. I'm going to grab a little more of that white, sorry, gray, light gray, on the side of his nose and bring it up in front of the Jeep. Now I'm just going to dip into the white and start painting his beard. Now, if you painted your background, you're going to see these stand out a lot more than I am because I didn't paint my background. So it's going to be pretty hard for you guys to see my gnome and his crazy beard. Unless I add some streaks to him like that so it maybe stands out a little bit. His little lips barely hanging on there. Alright, let's bring it back to the guy on the top because his tree's dry now. So I'm going to go ahead and paint. You're going to be able to see his beard because it's going to be over the green. Under the nose, under his hat, bring it down. If my strokes go up and down, like his beard is going to be flowing down, can have some wisps coming off the side. Now, just like with most of the colors, I mean, white covers up a lot. It covers really well. It's because of the titanium base, usually in white. It covers well. But it still might need a second coat if you did like I just did, and I'm just painting over the green. If you wanted to have it drawn out and you wanted to paint around it like it was a coloring book, then it would be... it would have been, you know, just a blank canvas, so it wouldn't need so much extra paint, but adding a little gray just to show some definition here. Help cover some of that green a little bit faster. If you wanted to add the shadow, you would add a little bit of that darker gray up underneath the hat and the nose. Because that's where the shadow of the light would be, right? Because it's casting it. Now, finally, this little guy over here, isn't he so cute? Hanging on for dear life. Again, I'm not going to be able to see this guy unless I make him gray, so, I mean, I guess I could use brown. We're going to do a gray beard here so you can see it. And your beards can be as whimsical as you want them to be. So you can kind of twist your paintbrush, get some of that paint out of there, bring it back to a point if you lost your point. Because this poor guy is hanging on for dear life. I'm going to cover up his arm too much. I kind of like the gray. I think I'm going to make all of the beards gray. So I'm going to go back and do those other ones with some gray. It'll tie in the bumper a little bit better too. Sorry, I don't have it on camera. My bad. Let's do the guy up here on the top again, too. So if you wanted your gnomes to have like red hair, blonde hair, gray hair, brown hair, black hair, however you want to paint it, just consider the other colors around where you're at. Again, since my background is white because I didn't paint a background, I wanted to make my beard stand out so you guys could see him a little bit better. So we went with the gray. I'm going to add some white back in there just to lighten some of the areas up, give them some dimension. I could do the same by adding some black in. Looks like some highlights and lowlights then. Like he's been to the salon. We could give him some red streaks or some green to tie those colors in if we wanted to. Come back in with my light nose color here. I think my brown dried up, but if I add a little bit more white to it. Try to touch up his nose. And bring it above the hat a little bit. Alright, the last final thing that I didn't do yet was create a color for the headlights. I want it to be a little bit lighter than the red that's there, but I don't want it to be too pink, so I'm going to try to add a little of this brown color, the skin color. Just add more red to it and a little bit of white here. Again, not so it's too pink, but go ahead and paint the headlight in there. Tail light, not headlight, tail light. And this one got covered up by the beard, so I'm not going to worry about that side. But there's his tail light. Now I could rinse that out, just grab a little bit of white. Again, just kind of highlight that again. And there we have it. Now, on my original painting, I had some snow kind of down here washed away. I would take kind of a bigger brush. I would dab into the snow, get a lot of that, the white, get a lot of that off. And then I started here, and I kind of scrub back and forth. Let me show you with the gray so you can see it. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to kind of scrub back and forth until the paint just kind of runs off my brush. So I would do this with the white for the snow if you did the background. And something else, if you have this background as white, you could do a blue or a purple to make it look like, you know, snow and some tire treads. I did a little bit down underneath the trees as well when I was painting on the other canvas. So I'm going to go up around my tires a little bit. You could actually have some kind of like splashing off, like you're speeding away. Just, you know, they're driving crazy because he is. And then I guess one last thing, because I don't have a board and I'm not going to be putting lights on here, I would probably grab yellow. So if you happen to have yellow nearby, you could do it with white too if you want. I'm going to do it with yellow because my white background won't be able to see it otherwise. So I'm just going to grab a little yellow, stick it on my plate. One last finishing touch because we can't forget about the lights. I'm going to take the back of my paintbrush. I'm going to dip it in. And I'm going to put some lights. And they could be colored lights, so you could do all the different colors if you want. The other thing you could do, you could decide that the trees around it want to be decorated as well. So if you wanted to decorate the other trees, you could put some Christmas ornaments in there. If you notice, the back of your paintbrushes come in different sizes depending on the bristle size. So if I wanted to do big balls, big ornaments, you can do it like that. Now, see, even though I'm using a bigger brush, I can just, if I push down harder, I'm going to get a bigger dot. And if I push down less, I'm going to get a smaller dot. And when the paint starts to wear off, you're going to get different size dots as well. So I decided to add some fun colors there to my trees. Decorate them for Christmas this time around, so you can have some fun doing that with it. I hope you enjoyed the painting. Tomorrow, what are we going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow is painting. I think we'll do another painting tomorrow. I'm thinking we'll do Van Gogh style, like Starry Night with a tree. So that'll be another tree tutorial with some more fun lights and colors and swirls like Vincent Van Gogh painted for Starry Night. Yeah, so that'll be fun. And then at some point, like I said, we might show you how to make one of these journals. So, as you can see, it's my sketching journal here, my painting journal. A lot of the different paintings that I've done have started here. There's a tree. A lot of Thanksgiving stuff, a lot of Halloween, a lot of Highland cows, some fall, some more gnomes, apple picking, pumpkin picking. This guy's one of my favorites. I think he was cute. We did that for a fundraiser. This is a Highland that I think most people really liked. He turned out really good. But there you have it. This video will be posted and should stay on my page for, I don't know, ever, unless Facebook has decided to start deleting some now. I know that I did see a post come through the other day asking me if I wanted to keep or delete a video that I had done before. So this should be underneath my videos if you're trying to find other pictures, because I have done other paintings during COVID. So if you don't want to do the Jeep and gnomes, check out those other ones. There's some flowers and some butterflies and whatnots there that you can do for free. I thank you very much for all the support you've given me in 2023, and we hope to see you again in 2024. If you have time, stop back tomorrow again at 11. And if not, just keep watching those videos and painting along with. Anytime you have a question, just shoot me a response and a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can and answer whatever you need. As the weather gets colder, the studio here is shut down, but in the spring again, I'm thinking March will be open back up. Until then, I'll be working with the Park and Rec, so Bigfoot Parks and Rec Department, Elkhorn Park and Rec Department, and Delavan Darien Parks and Rec. Delavan Darien is just the adults, and that's going to be at the Shore Bar and Grill, which is new, out by South Shore Bar and Grill, but just before it, if you're coming from the way I always go. And then I'm also at Delavan Lake Store and Lounge every month doing something. This next Thursday, the first Thursday of January, we are doing a string art workshop. So if you ever wanted to do string art, come on out. We're going to do that. Super simple, super basic, just to get you guys going to learn how to do it, and then you can venture out and do so much more on your own. Elkhorn Park and Recs is going to be, I think, the 3rd. And I'd have to look it up on my phone. But it's either the 2nd or 3rd, Friday, Saturday. I think it's the 3rd, Friday, Saturday of every month. Friday night, adults at the Park and Recs Department by Sunset Pool. And then on Saturday mornings, the following Saturday morning with the kids, there's 2 different times for the littles and then the biggers. 9 to 10-ish and then 10 to 11-ish. You can find all that information on the Elkhorn Park and Rec Department website. I'll try to have some links to those as well on my Facebook page. And then the last one was the Bigfoot Parks and Rec Department down in Walworth. Those are held at Bigfoot High School for the kiddos in the art room. And the adults is going to be at the bowling alley, the 10 Pin, I believe it's called, in Walworth, on a Wednesday night, so that you can do the paint and sip. So you're welcome to purchase alcohol or any other beverages you care for from the bowling alley from them. So keep your eyes open to my page and my posts to see what's coming up next, where I'm going to be in the colder months. And then as it gets warmer here again, we'll open the studio back up and we'll get the clay projects going. I know everyone loves the clay. Remember, we have 3 potter's wheels, so I can teach pottery lessons, wheel throwing lessons. We have experiences where you can just try it for a day. And then we have lessons that you get for 6 weeks. I have hand building lessons as well. I had a customer ask if we could do hand building, kind of like we do the wheel throwing, and I said sure. So we're going to be doing hand building lessons as well. We always have fun projects coming up too. Like I said, in March when we open back up, I've got another fun garden creature that we're going to be making. And if you don't want it to go in your garden, you want it to go in your house, we'll just make the bottom of it flat so it can sit on a table. Otherwise, we put it on a stake and we have it out in the yard. So hope you keep an eye on our page and continue to come back to create. And I thank you once again for all of your support. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Christmas break.